All right, we're recording. Hello, 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 hello. Hey,
Hello, good morning. Good morning.
Patty. Welcome to another installment of Get a Clue in 52. It's 8 o'clock p.m. straight up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and give me a second here. I know that we're going live on the YouTube, and oh, look at Vipul's joining us. Ooh, nice. So let me go ahead and do a Facebook Live here. Hello, Vipul.
Hello.
Hey, 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 hey. I'm going to go ahead and let's see. Let's do add a description. Get, oops, get, get a clue. Get a clue in 52. Tip number 5. All right, let's go ahead and go live. Let's see what happens here. All right, all right, all right. So I think that we're going live right now. Hello to those of you that are on the Facebook side. Hello on the Zoom side. Charlie, Patty, Vipo, I got you with me. And I think that we're going on to my YouTube channel as well. And we're here for another installment of Get a Clue in 52. That's right. Tip number 5. Happy Sunday to each and every one of you. This is the 5th Sunday in January. 5 down, 47 to go, right? And I don't know what I'm going to do here. I'm holding my phone. Let's see what's going on here. I'm gonna have to let it stabilize itself as I read. All right, all right. Let me say hello to Charlie, Patty, and people that are with me on the Zoom side. Hello, those of you that are watching on the Facebook side, and let's go. Get a clue in 52, and this is tip number 5 tonight. And what I want to do is I want to get back into these dedications. Let me start off right away. Vipo, my man, is on the line right here. He always starts his readings with gratitude, and so dedication is a form of gratitude. When you dedicate a work to someone, you're showing your gratitude and appreciation. In week number 1, I shared gratitude with Marianne, and then week number 2 with Abigail. Then for some reason, let me start off right away. Vipo, my man, is on the line. Oh, somebody's feeding back to me.
Oh,
Okay,
sorry. Yeah, I was checking out the YouTube channel to make sure it's live.
okay, very good, very good. All right, cool, awesome. Anyway, for some reason in week number 3, I didn't read dedications, and then I got back into it last week. So to Mom and then to Sue, and now this week, interesting. Maybe I should have pinged her so she would be on board. But anyway, let me go ahead and read the 5th dedication, week 5, to Robin. The revolution may not be televised, but the gatherings will be gifted. For sharing your gifts with me at a time I needed them most, I'll be forever grateful. That goes out to Robin Peterson out there in Denver, Colorado, and her beautiful husband, Jeremy. Love you guys. If you get a chance to come on live or see a recording of this, you're here in the dedications. All right. So that means next week there might be a word or two in there for Patty and Charlie. All right. So tonight is tip number 5 of Get a Clue in 52. As you may know by now, there's 52 tips, 5 categories, 10 tips in each category except marketing. Marketing's got 2 extra tips, 12 total, that gave me a full 52. So it just matches up, 1 tip per week. And so last year, out of the first edition of the book, we did 52 consecutive Sundays. We read a tip every single week, and we're doing it again this year. So this is the 5th week in a row this year, but the 57th consecutive Sunday that I'm coming on board to read 1 tip from the book and then pivot into group communication or group discussion or group coaching, interaction, whatever you guys want to talk about. So we're in tip number 5 of the year, and it's tip number 5 of the communication section. 10 robust tips in the communication section. And if I may, I'll go ahead and I'll start with a review. Tip number 1 was checking baggage. We all bring things to communication, and we categorized baggage, checking your luggage. It's personal and past experiences, culture, and our heredity, right? We all show up to communication with that. And when we become aware that we and others show up to communication with these 3 bags, then we can begin to adapt and think ahead of time about our encoding to maybe anticipate what's in somebody's bag before we just communicate from our frame of reference, and to understand our frame of reference when we're making meaning of what other people are communicating. So our bags, our filters, right? We all show up with baggage. Tip number 2 in the communication section was invite all of your senses to the listening party, right? And a lot of people confuse hearing with listening. One is physiological, the other is psychological. And I make the case or the point that really it becomes listening when we attend. It's just hearing until we attend, till we pay attention to what we hear. So it made sense to me that, well, can't we attend to whatever we observe? Can we attend to what we're seeing? Can we attend to what we're feeling? Can we attend to what we're smelling? Can on and on. So I invite all of your senses to the listening party. All right, that was tip number 2. Tip number 3 is overcome these, you'll overcome a lot. What are these? There are 5 barriers to critical thinking, 5 things that prevent us from listening, from thinking critically, from being objective, and dare I say, 5 things that prevent us from loving. They are stereotyping and frozen evaluations and self-interest and ego defense and ethnocentrism. There may not be a more important tip in the entire book than tip number 3 from the communication section. Overcome these, you'll overcome a lot. We want to overcome our natural tendencies to thinking critically. We don't want to accept information on face value. We want to be trained and we want to build habits of asking questions, right? All right, next, tip number 4, which is what we covered last week, was replace statements with questions. Tip number 3 was like questioning information that comes in. But tip number 4 is about using questions to get information out, right? A lot of people will know where you're coming from when you ask good questions. Good questions are wonderful replacement for statements. Statements could put people on the defensive. Statements could make people feel that they're pressed upon and provoke a press back. But questions always engage. The human brain cannot hear a question without trying to answer. So questions are just my favorite method, mechanism, device, technique, strategy for communication. Questions rule, and they're just powerful forms. Now, tip number 5 is where we're at tonight. We're at 8:08 p.m. Hello, Vipul. Hello, Amita. Is it Amita? I see you're on mute, but am I pronouncing that correctly? I see you down there from Carolina Charms Salon and Spa. Oh, that's Amy, right?
It's Amy.
Okay,
Yeah.
there we go. All right, but it says Amita. All right, no.
It's
Hi,
supposed to say Amy
Charlie.
Taylor.
Okay, all right, Amy, we're gonna open up the microphones in a minute. It's just this is my first time seeing you here, and I'm grateful that you're here. And we're gonna get in. So there's a review. The first 4 tips. Now, tip number 5. Week number 5 overall. Tip number 5 in the communication section. Here we go. It's page number 25. If you're following along with your own version of the book at home. All right, here we go, word for word, and I read. Tip number 5, CSI Communication. Indulge me here as I set this up, ... Have you ever seen those CSI shows? There used to be only one. It was called CSI, for Crime Scene Investigation. It was good. So, of course, they made a spinoff for another city, CSI Miami, I think, then CSI Los Angeles, I believe. The original was in CSI Las Vegas. When I would teach this tip in my classrooms, I used to joke that I was sick of those shows because they weren't as good as the original, and I wasn't going to watch again until they came up with a CSI Tijuana. I digress. Back to my setup. The hook for the show was evidence, the forensic evidence gathered at crime scenes, and the science/technology of crime solving interwoven into classic mystery plots. Who knew? The main attraction of a TV show wasn't the characters. The lead character for CSI Miami was unwatchable, in my opinion, or the plots, recycled crime drama stuff, but the evidence, how a crime is solved or the truth becomes evident from the supporting materials gathered at the scene was the star of the show. So tip number 5, thank you, by the way, for indulging me, is to watch or practice CSI Communication. That's right. Pay attention to evidence and understand the role of supporting material in effective communication. Imagine that for every statement you ever make, there is someone there to immediately ask, what makes you so sure? Some claims by themselves are believable up front, while others require supporting material, sometimes referred to as evidence or proof. So, when writing, speaking in public, or even during interpersonal conversation, and definitely during any form of argumentation, it is really ideal to know forms of evidence and how to select and present backup for the claims you are making. The common forms of evidence I teach speakers to use in their presentation includes facts, examples, which can include stories or anecdotes, analogies, statistics, testimonials, comparisons, and demonstrations. Each of these forms of supporting material can strengthen the acceptability or believability of any claims you are making. When seeking to inform, persuade, influence, convince, motivate, or in some other way having what you are communicating accepted, I recommend thinking about and making good selections as to the evidence. No, not forensic evidence like blood samples or fingernail follicle, but the supporting material that makes arguments stronger. You'll be ready to provide. All right, there it is, word for word, straight out of the book. Tip number 5 in the books. Do you know anybody that's done anything for 57 consecutive Sundays since the beginning of January 2020? Well, now you do. 57 tips in a row, even though 5 of them are recycled, the first 5 in communication. When we redid the book, we thought, me, myself, we, and others I got feedback from, we thought, communication would be a great section to start the book with. Let's see how all the tips flow from there. Communication was section 4 last year, section 1 this year. So here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, open up, all right? I don't see anybody commenting on the Facebook side yet, but with me live is Charlie on the Zoom side, Charlie, Patty, Amy, and Vipul. Why don't you guys go ahead and open up your microphones if you want to ask questions, make statements, contributions, jokes, anecdotes, anything if you want to participate. We're pivoting now to group conversation. Hi, Maggie. I can see you. Hello. What's going on? Vipul, Amy, Patty, Charlie, do you guys have anything? And I'm not plugged in, right? I don't have to reset the audio. If you guys open up your microphones, my phone should hear you as we're going live on Facebook.
We see this a lot with our sales, like our retail sales for the salon, and to be able to tell someone, we want them to use our product, and that I use it at home. I actually used it for 6 months before I even put it into the salon. So giving them that backstory helps them feel more comfortable with buying the product that I've recommended for them.
Yeah. So I first of all, thanks for opening up. I love the example. What we're talking about is evidence, right? We're not talking about proof. We're not trying to solve a crime. We're talking about information that makes a claim more evident than it would be by itself. So just to use your example, you're saying, "Hi, hey, listen, thanks for coming into the store today. Buy this product." Right? But you say, "Hey, thanks for coming into the store today. The reason I want you to buy this product is because I used it for 6 months before I even put it on the shelf." And now all of a sudden, that story that you're giving about 6 months and what your experience was, that claim alone, it was just isolated, it was just hanging there. And then all of a sudden, you throw a because and put a story behind it. Now it's just more evident, right? And it seems simple, and it can be, but you would be surprised how many people forget to back up their claims with evidence and supporting material. So yeah, thanks for starting us off. What else, Amy, if anything? What else?
I'm really happy to
go. Well, that was it, really. I thought I did good. You need more?
I did good.
No. We're in Get A Klu in 52. It is Sunday night, and we are feeling all right. It's 8:15 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you want to join on the Zoom side and come on in and join Charlie and Patty and Amy and Vipul, it's very simple. It's just tinyurl.com/get-a-clue. That's all you need to do, and you'll join us live on the Zoom side. If you have any comments or questions for me on the Facebook side, just go ahead and type them in. I'll do my best to keep an eye into my phone while I'm looking at Zoom, and I know that we're going on to my YouTube channel as well. Watch Get a Clue, all one word. YouTube.com/watch Get a Clue. And we're doing Get a Clue in 52 every Sunday night this year, just like we did last year. But this is the second edition of the book. So I appeal to my Zoomers, Charlie, Patty, Vipul, and Amy. Do you have any other comments or questions about tonight's tip? Any other tip in the communication section? Or do you want to get into like coaching or leadership or any other topic that you want to cover? It's open-ended. Open-ended. As soon as we pivot away from reading word for word, whatever I can do for you guys, I'm here. So, oh, there you go. Charlie, thank you for putting the URL into the, I see that. You put the URL into the live. That's beautiful, Charlie. Thank you. So anybody else have a, Vipul, your mic is opened up. Let's hear it.
Yeah, I've got something. So as I was reading this tip, or as you were reading the tip, and I was trying to digest it, all I kept thinking about CSI Communication and about evidence was dang COVID, and like all these things that are coming out, and one person says this and then another person says that, and it's like completely opposite. It's like you find me something evidence, and then I could find something you that's completely opposite evidence. That's for some reason that's all that came to my mind.
Yeah. All right. Well, you know what? You're bringing up something that's kind of important, and it's maybe even a little deeper than I wanted to go. But
oh, well, sorry.
But no, that's okay. That's okay. All right. So let's check this out. Are you guys ready? What you're bringing up, I think what you're bringing up, is everybody ready for this? Do I have permission? Do I have your permission out there in Facebook land? Because you're the ones that are guilty, right? You know, memes and, you know, left and right. And anyway, it's crazy. It's crazy. What you're talking about, I'm going to say it. It's an F word. It's an F word. You ready? Fallacy. Fallacy. So a fallacy, from the land of communication, a fallacy is an argument that is flawed. Flawed. So let me guys give you a visual. Let me give you a visual on an argument, right? First of all, there's one type of argument is to have an argument. He said, she said. That's the verb, the action of argument. We're arguing. You know, you walk the dogs. No, you walk the dogs. No, I walked them last time. No, well, I fed them. Like arguments that you're from the kids. Thank you, Patty. Right? Having an argument is different than making, constructing. So if one way to look at argument is verb. I'm a verb, action. I'm arguing, right? Fighting, arguing. The other way to look at argument is a noun. I'm going to put forth an argument. I'm going to construct and put forth an argument. Is everybody with me on the noun side of argument? You guys with me? So you guys want to see what an argument looks like? Visually? Vipul, I know you're going to be taking notes, my friend. This is straight from the integrity game. You ready? It is a claim statement supported by evidence and reasoning. There it is. Right there. Very simple. Well, you see the word fallacy up here. But a claim statement, right? So C equals claim. So a claim by itself is not an argument. It's a statement. It's a claim. It's a, right? It's a declaration. Those are synonyms for claim. It's a claim or a statement or a declaration. You guys with me on that? That's the claim. That's the C. Now the C is arrived at or supported. It stands on evidence and reasoning. Evidence and reasoning. Are you guys with me? Now I could break down evidence and I can break down reasoning. Watch, give me a second. And I could actually break down claim. All right. So of all of the claims I could possibly make, I'm either going to claim that the world is a certain way, or that we should feel a certain way about the world, or that we should behave a certain way in the world. You guys with me on this? Check this out. So that's fact, value, or policy, according to the literature. According to the literature, I'm either claiming that something is true, statement of fact, even if it's not true, or I'm claiming that we should value, we should feel the way, like fact is I'm claiming the way the world is. And then value is I'm saying, well, we should feel a certain way about the way the world is. And then policy is we should behave or not behave a certain way in the world. Because if I made 1 million statements, all million would fall into one of these three categories. Right? Now, check this out. Vipul, I saw you nod your head. Charlie, I saw you nod your head. One statement I could make is a statement of fact. Right? Do you see that? So I could say, it is a fact that there are 32 people on this Zoom right now. But I didn't give you reasoning, and I didn't give you evidence. What happens as soon as I give you evidence? I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That claim doesn't follow from the evidence. Evidence would show that there's only 5 people on this Zoom right now. So the claim was a fallacy because the evidence shows only 5 people when the claim was 32. Are you guys with me on that? Right? Now I'll say, watch this, just to be silly. I'll say there are 5 people on this Zoom right now because they have nothing better to do. Thank you. You all laughed. Thank you. I was going for the joke right now. But now, thank you out there. And right. Well, wait a second. No, that's not the reason we're here. Yeah, it's true. There's only 5. Yeah, the evidence would show there's only 5. But the reason is because we thought this would be really good for us, not because we didn't have anything better to do. So even though the claim was true and the evidence would support it, it was still a fallacy because the reasoning wasn't. Do you guys understand what I'm getting at? So if any of these 3 are out of integrity, all 3 are out of integrity. Sometimes the claim is materially true, but it doesn't follow from the evidence that was given. Sometimes the evidence that's given is materially true, but it doesn't support the claim. Sometimes the reasoning is sound, like inductive or deductive or cause or sign or analogical. There's forms of reasoning. Right? If this, then that, or right? All kinds of forms of reasoning. Sometimes the reasoning is sound and the evidence is solid, but the claim is still not true. And what you're, like right now, like I'm going to be quiet for a second, right? Pen drop or pad drop, right? Because if you're following along, you understand what we're seeing on internet is tons of fallacies of logic, just everywhere, left and right, red and blue. Fallacies of logic. These claims that are being put forth that don't follow from the evidence. Facebook now, they're coming on and saying, no, only partially true. Like how many, now you're seeing claim people are posting things that have the blocked sign on them. Like, like, no, only part of this was true. The context is missing. This is misleading stuff. Hey, like it's a new thing. It's a new thing that Facebook and social media are actually building in algorithms to check the logic or the illogical nature of posts. In a democracy, for Christ's sakes, right? In democracy, it's very important that there's an informed citizenry. But if all we're informed by is a bunch of fallacies, then we get what we deserve. And if you, the public, aren't trained to see through the memes, to whether there's integrity in the claim supported by evidence and reasoning, then you're not thinking critically and you're not an educated communicator, and you're part of the problem, right? So, and I say you, and I'm looking at me because I'm a human being and I get triggered emotionally, and I'll go ahead and respond to something just like anybody else will. But at least I know what I'm doing when I fuck up. Anyway, I digress. Thank you, Patty. Vipul, you brought up a very, 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 very important thing, right? What's going on the internet, and how are people arriving at conclusions without strength in the argumentation, without validity and reliability and integrity of claim with evidence and reasoning? So thank you for bringing that up and letting me, unload a little bit there. It's up to us, right? We're the informed citizenry. We're the ones that have to be. Are you ready? Charlie, I'm stealing it from you now. Don't ask me for the Klubi snack at the end. I'm going to give it to you now. Charlie, write it down. You're like, no, yes. Ready, Charlie? Here it comes. According to Coach Jeffrey, it's our responsibility to be effective producers and consumers of communication. It's our responsibility to be effective producers and consumers of communication. Hey, Martha. Hey, Steven. Hey, Maggie. See you guys out there on the Facebook side. Type any comments that you want. If you have any questions, any sharing that you want, come on into the Zoom if you want to join the conversation live. tinyurl.com/get a clue. Otherwise, it warms my heart to see you guys. Maggie, Steven, Martha. So yeah, Charlie, you got your Klubi snack ahead of time. I beat you to the punch, my man. And for those of you that are out there watching, Charlie on board on the Zoom side always asks me for a Klubi snack at the end of the session, and I beat him to the punch. It's not the end of the session by any means, but we are rolling, aren't we? We are in tip number 5, get a clue in 52. This is tip number 5 of the communication section. What a doozy tonight. CSI Communication, crime or communication scene investigation. I'm trying to point your attention to evidence. Are you just saying stuff, or are you making what you say more evident than it would be otherwise? Because what we know to be true is our experience, but maybe brand new for somebody else, right? The curse of knowledge. When we're so familiar with what it's like to know something that we have forgotten what it's like not to know, that may prevent us from providing evidence when we're sharing what we need to share. Right? And making it more evident, right? Asking for feedback. Are you with me? Does that make sense? Is anybody unclear about that? Does anybody need me to provide another example, right? Why not ask if you need to provide more evidence rather than just assuming that the first way you said it is the way it'll be understood? How foolish, right? Or how risky, I should say. Assuming the first way you said it is the way it'll be understood. How risky. Right? Why not make sure we always have evidence for the things that we know may not be understood? All right, let me appeal to my audience on Zoom. Charlie, Patty, Amy, Vipul, any other questions, comments, offerings, promptings? Vipul, you really got me going, man. Charlie, your mic is opened up.
Good. Welcome, Amy. Good to have you, and evening, everyone. Would making analogies of something to get a point across be part of the evidence?
Yes. By the way, Charlie.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Can I thank you real quick? This is the most clear and succinct question I've ever, I'm like, when you turn on the mic, I get ready to sit here for a minute where you gather all the thoughts and you bring in all 57 tips and you weave them together, and I don't know if you're asking a question or making a statement or just talking through everything that's coming through your mind, and all of a sudden you're like, would using analogy be a form of evidence? Wait a second. Was that just yes? Oh,
Was that Charlie or someone else?
No. So first of all, thank you for that. Second of all, it's my favorite, right? Analogies and metaphors. I mean, I guarantee you, I can ask Patty. Patty's online with me right now, or Vipul, who's very intimate with my work, right? Knows my work very clearly. I could say, what is an analogy that I use to explain something, to make something more evident than it would be otherwise? Patty, do you have something off the top of your head?
Right. Well, the grocery store.
Okay. The grocery store of marketing communication. I have a talk that I do. By the way, it's a keynote speech. If you're out there and you're needing a keynote speech for marketing, it's also a great module at a business retreat. And never mind. All right. Well, let's come back. Grocery store of marketing communication. I'm trying to teach elements of marketing communication by using the analogy of being in a grocery store and going aisle to aisle, shopping for ingredients that will let you go back home and cook marketing messages that appeal to all of your eaters, right? Like so I love cooking as a metaphor. I love grocery store. I love the integrity game, you guys. By the way, Get a Clue in 52 has a preview chapter of my next book, The Integrity Game. And a lot of times when I'm explaining integrity, I use the analogy of shoes. Lacing, there you go, Vipul, you got it. Lacing up shoes. And Vipul, did you see what Vipul did right there on camera? Did everybody see that? Vipul, as soon as he went, bam, right? Because he's got a visual in his head now of laces, boom, 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 boom. And now, like, that's powerful. If just the words are coming and Vipul's able to move his body in a way that represents what he could see in his head, because I gave that analogy that put that picture in the head. Now I've anchored the teaching, So, I mean, you set me up there. Were you planning on setting me up with an easy question tonight, Charlie? Like, the answer, first of all, yes. Analogy is one of my favorites. And I'll tell you something else. Let me go cluba diving with you. Are you ready?
Before you do that, I watched you doing the spider story yesterday.
Did you really? Let's go. Yeah. Tell me more. This is great.
It was, what is your perception, or where are you? What is that ego? How do you come in with that ego defense, getting on fight or flight?
Fight or flight response.
If you walked into a spider web, but I was on the floor seeing you going, you actually took your glasses
off. Charlie, that was a special night. I was opening for Mark Wahlberg that night.
That's right.
Well, I knew Mark Wahlberg was coming out right after me. Yeah. And the other thing about that night was 2 nights earlier, I got a chance to open for John Travolta at the same event. And I didn't know how long I had to talk. So I wanted to open up the tip from last week. Tip number 3, conquer these, you'll conquer a lot, or get over the.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about the 5 barriers to critical thinking.
The 5 barriers, yes.
So 2 nights earlier, I started to get into it, and I got through like 1 barrier, stereotyping, and then they pulled me. They yanked me off the stage because Travolta was ready. And then there's 2 nights later, like, Jeff, can you go back on? I'm like, yeah, I can go back on. I'm like, hey, how many of you were here 2 nights ago? Well, I started this talk and I finished it up, and I was able to get through there. Oh man, I was on fire that night. That was such a great night.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I watched it twice.
Well, listen, a lot of people have that experience of walking into a spider web.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But
then let me
just finish. I love you bringing this in. It's like, if you're just trying to explain to somebody what is ego defense, and you say, well, it's emotional fight or flight response. They go, right? You say, well, fight or flight is when you're sensed physical danger, you either attack or you run from whatever, and you're still just explaining it. Then you say, have you ever walked into a spider web face first? Aha! Now you got something that'll make your body move the way Vipul did when he did this, right? So now you got a
Yes.
visual to anchor, and that's what we're talking about is
Yeah.
creating evidence, and an analogy is one form of evidence that I'm a big fan of. Now, what did you want to say before I keep going? Because there's more I want to say on this, but what did you want to say? What did you
No,
want to say?
continue. I was just wanting to add that I was watching
Well, check it out.
the
Analogy, when I teach public speaking, analogy is really good at the end of a speech to like tie back to something that you said in the beginning, or analogy is good as an attention getter at the beginning of the speech, right? A lot of times, just to be like, how should I say, conventional or 101 about public speaking, you want to start off with an attention getter. And then at the end of your speech, you want to say something that's like a tie back. Say something at the end of the speech that ties back to something that you said earlier in the speech that gives your audience a sense of closure or completeness, right? Or it's, sometimes, you see stand-up comedians doing this. They'll say something at the beginning of their bit, and then 10 minutes will go by and they'll come back to it. And then another 10 minutes go by and they'll hit it again. So it's an anchor, and they tie back and tie back and tie back. They anchor something that creates familiarity, right? But it also can serve as a bookend. But analogy, it's not proof. Analogy doesn't prove anything. It just makes what you're saying more evident than it would be on its own when you create a visual. And another, before we get off this topic, I love you bringing this up, Charlie. One of my favorite analogies or metaphors is the coffee filter for smart goal setting, right? Whenever I teach goal setting, I always use the analogy or the metaphor of making coffee. Always. If anybody wants a deeper dive on goal setting, contact me privately or go to thekluberry.com. There's a $19 course on why we fail to set goals, how to set goals, and guidelines and study sheets on how to go ahead and get your goal set. I think it comes with 2 comp sessions with one of my trained coaches. So if you need help with your goal setting, go to thekluberry.com. All right, we're back here in Get a Clue in 52. And open mic, open conversation. We read tip number 5 tonight. It's the 5th Sunday of January. Lucky January gets 5 Sundays, right? February ain't so lucky. Anyway, and it's still going to be 52 by the end of the year, however you slice it. And we're tip number 5 tonight, midway through the communication section. Patty, I see your microphone open up. Hello, my love.
Hi. Hi, Amy. It's so good to see you here. And people too. You know, what I was thinking was about metaphors before Charlie spoke and analogies is that they are inviting your senses, because tip number 2, invite all your senses, right?
Whatever we pay attention to. And analogy gives us more color, more texture, more smell, feel, visceral, more vivid imagination for what we're trying to pay attention to than just the text or just the words. Excellent. I love that tie-in to our previous tip in the communication section. Now, I don't hear any questions there. You're just making an observation. Beautiful offering. Beautiful, beautiful. Anything else?
I don't have a question except to maybe dive deeper into how we can communicate better by looking at the evidence and the reasoning. Because when you were talking about fallacies, you can also have a fallacy not just in all 3 of those. Well,
if any one of the 3 are off, it's a fallacy. You're right.
The reasoning is the one where I see the most fallacies, because at least in a lot of what I read, because I look for this and I see their reasoning and I go, they're using a reasoning that is supporting their claim, as opposed to a reasoning that I can accept as being valid. And that's partly my own prejudice, I realize.
Yeah, it would be interesting if we had examples on the ready. right? So look at them, absolute case studies, right? But here's as far as I could take, here's as much as I have for you tonight without specific examples. All right, you're not going to like this part of it, but I'm going to say it's context specific, first of all, right? The context. But I would say this, you started off by asking this question, like, well, how can we get better at this, right? Just very simply, and to that, I would say this. Think real quick, think about this. If you said to me 2 + 2 = 4, that's pretty believable, right? But if you told me, I don't know, let me just make something up. The election was stolen. I'm going to need some evidence.
Right.
Okay. So what I mean, not to get red or blue, or left or right on this. Okay. Right. But what the point I'm making is, in our lives, we can anticipate the things we may say that are more or less hard to believe.
Correct.
Right? If I know I'm going to tell you 2 + 2 = 4, I don't need to go a step further and prepare to have evidence to back that up. But if I am going to tell you that the wildfires were started from Jews in space shooting laser beams, just to make something up off the top of my head, then I might want some evidence to that.
Right. It's going to be harder to convince me.
Thank you for laughing. Okay. Thank you very much for laughing. My point is very simple. If you can get ahead of in your community, in your homeowners association, in your Toastmasters group, in your PTA that Marianne, my wife, volunteers for, in Little League, in the classroom, in government, in your business. If you're going to make claims, you got to stop and say, just because you believe it 100% doesn't mean that it's 100% readily believable.
Right.
And the farther away it is from 100% readily believable, like if I drop this, it will fall, like gravity, right? However far away we get from, guess what? The sun will rise tomorrow. I don't need any evidence or reasoning for that, right? There's absolutes in life, and the farther away we get from the absolutes, the more we need reasoning and evidence. Does that make sense? So what I'm asking you to do is, in your life, in your community, in your business, in your sales, in your job, anticipate when you're going to be making claims that aren't believable on face. And then figure out what's the best reasoning, what's the best evidence that you can have on the ready to offer along with the claim.
Right. So it's the whole knowing your audience, like, are they going to react to what you're saying with skepticism or not? Right.
That's one. And it's even too, it's like, oh, well, a lot of my audience will know what I'm talking about. Right. Well, guess what? I'll say, hey, how many of you know what I'm talking about? And then you get your audience participation. Now you make your talk interactive rather than talking head. Let your audience bring about the evidence. That's one of my favorite things to do. When I'm doing keynotes, and I'm doing keynotes all the time now on the integrity game. Are you ready? I'm doing keynotes on the integrity game. You've seen me do this. Amy, did you see me do this? Did you see me talk about the integrity game at a business retreat? Maybe. And I'll say, how many of you have integrity? How many of you believe you have integrity? It's a question, form of a claim, right? It's a question. How many of you believe you have integrity? And then everybody raises their hand. And I say, don't shoot the messenger. I'm going to ask again in 45 minutes, and we'll see if everybody raises their hand, right? And then I say, wait a second. Before I can make such a claim that less of you will raise your hand, let's make sure we're all on the same page. And then I bring everybody into, well, what is integrity? And now I can pull from the audience and let them help me answer that question. Now I got evidence, not just that I'm offering, but I pull it from the audience. I always get 2 answers to that question. I only get 2 answers to that question. And I always get the same 2 answers to that question, right? So without diving deeper on the integrity game, do you understand what I'm getting at? Right? You think, well, I was going fast now, Patty, but it's like, wait, is my audience least likely to understand this? So I need to have evidence ready. But even when I'm speaking in front of an audience that thinks they do understand it, and I need to tell them that they don't. Now I can pull the evidence right out of the audience and show it right back to them. And anyway, evidence is important. Evidence is important in communication, and having evidence on the ready when we know we're about to make statements that might be less believable than 2 + 2 = 4. All right, let me say hello to a couple of people that are on the Facebook side. Vanessa, hello. Dr. Jackson, see you, love you. Hello, Shalom, Michael, Akili, and Martha. Vipul is writing in. Hey, Vipul, you're on the Facebook side. Claim equals evidence plus reason, right? Claim supported by evidence and reasoning. Yeah, we're close there. And hello, Martha and Stephen and Maggie. Charlie, you chimed in on the Facebook side as well. Thank you so much for that. We are in Get a Clue in 52. This is tip number 5 overall, tip number 5 in the communication section, tip number 5 this year overall. We've pivoted. I've read word for word, and now we've pivoted into group conversation. Joining me on the Zoom side is Charlie and Vipul and Patty and Amy. And hey, Vanessa, I love you, Dr. Jackson. If you want to come on the Zoom side, tinyurl.com/getaclue. You don't even have to open up the camera. Your microphone will do. If you want to get a live question in or type something into the comments, and we'll bring you through. And we're just having fun on a Sunday night. Look, no smoke, no mirrors, no lighting, no makeup, no advanced production techniques, none of that. Just open up the microphone on a Sunday night and let it fly. And it's wonderful to have everybody with me tonight. Vipul, Amy, Patty, Charlie, thank you guys so much for coming on to the Zoom side. Any other questions or comments? Any other questions or comments tonight? Hello, Shalom. Shalom, Shalom. All right. Any other questions, comments? Get a Clue in 52. Tonight was tip number 5. We're talking about evidence, the usefulness, the power of evidence to make our claims stronger than they would be all on their own. That's what we're talking about tonight. But you guys can ask me about anything. Ask me. I don't care what you ask me about. Ask me what I had for dinner last night. It's all good. At some point, though, we'll get to last call. Charlie, your microphone is open. What do you got?
Yeah, pretty much the usual thing that's wrapping it in and tying all the tips together is what Patty has just said was, how does you judge that one off? Again, what immediately hit me at the time was, which barriers are you bringing to it? Is it your affiliation, where you affiliated to, what is your history? You made an example of 2 + 2, and that would come to says, okay, what is your personal experience? What's your history, your culture? All those little things start tying in and coming in, and that forms how skeptical you will become to the statement. And then, yes, continue.
Well, how skeptical you could become.
Yes, right? And then, if you had made the statement, who are you making the statement to? How are they going to believe it? Which analogy do you have to form? Metaphor, example, that is going to make it a little bit more believable. I found that quite a lot. I might need to make one analogy to one person and a different analogy to another person, but meaning the same thing and having to give the same evidence.
Yeah, if you really want to break it down, and I really, like I said, I was hesitant to do it, but I did it, right? If you really want to break it down, you're asking yourself, am I about to claim that the world is a certain way? Or am I about to claim that we should feel a certain way about the way the world is? Or am I about to claim that we should behave or not behave in a certain way? So how the world is how we should feel about the world and how we should behave in the world. Now, as soon as I tell you how the world is, if I say the world is round, you may not argue with me. If I say the world is flat, you may be like, well, where's the evidence of that? If I say, you know what, the sun is good, I know that the sun comes up every day, but you say it's good that the sun comes up every day, or it sucks that the sun comes up every day, or it's oppressive that the sun comes up every day. That's just how you feel about the way the world is, right? Like, oh, well, you should get some shade, or no, you should stay out there and burn, or you should, whatever, what you do based on how you feel about the way the world is, right? But if any of this is unbelievable, if any of this is hard to believe, if any of these three aren't readily believable on surface, on face value, then it's a good idea to bring in evidence and reasoning. And tonight's tip was all about forms of evidence, right? Evidence. It was about the evidence. I wasn't talking about the reasoning part. That's another module. It didn't make the top 10 for me to break down reasoning, but there's different types of reasoning: inductive reasoning, deductive reasoning, right? Go general to specific, specific to general, right? There's cause reasoning, there's sign reasoning, there's analogical reasoning. And a lot of the reasoning that's out there on the internet is faulty. That's all there is to it. It's just a lot of what we see on the internet is a big fallacy, right? Claims supported by evidence and reasoning. And people aren't aware of that as well as they should be. And they aren't as careful as they should be. And a lot of people are contributing to the mess that's out there by forwarding and promoting and just pasting these nonsensical arguments, fallacies of argument. And like our democracy depends on it. And people are just willy-nilly with their argumentation. And it drives me nuts. All right, John is out there. Hello, John. I see you watching. John, Shalom, Vipul, Vanessa, Martha, Stephen, Maggie, hello on the Facebook Live side. In addition to Charlie, Vipul. Oh, Vipul, you're everywhere. Charlie, you're everywhere. Patty and Amy. We're in Get A Klu at 8:52 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We're getting done with our weekend, kicking off our week. It's tomorrow morning already for Charlie in South Africa. Who else has something? Charlie, your mic's still open. Continue, my brother. Go ahead.
Yeah. One final question. Not this Klubi snack, so you can relax. I've got my Klubi snack. Other than the claim, what else would in a conversation require evidence? Or what would induce or motivate someone to want evidence?
Disbelief.
What else?
Disbelief.
Mm-hmm. So what would encourage them to disbelieve? Would it be, again, I'll tie back into other tips, nonverbal communication?
Well, nonverbal communication is a form of evidence, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times nonverbal is incongruent with verbal, so the evidence doesn't, right?
Yeah.
But your question was, what is it that prompts a need for evidence? And the answer to that is nothing, right? You never need evidence unless you need evidence, right? So what prompts it? It's disbelief. If the other person, now sometimes somebody doesn't believe the claim and you're giving them evidence and they reject it. Remember, that's self-interest or frozen evaluations. When we systematically reject true information because we're too lazy or proud to change our minds. We covered that in tip number 4, overcome these tip number 3, overcome these, you'll overcome a lot, right? So sometimes people are rejecting evidence, right? Because they want to stay in their subjective comfort zone and they're not thinking critically, right? Other people, like I've reached out to people that I know I disagree with to say, will you please explain to me how and why you feel differently? Like literally wanting to know how on earth can this thing happen? Here's the thing that happened. We both saw it. And I am describing it this way and you are describing it that way. Will you please help me understand why you see it that way?
What is your reality?
Dying to know how on earth Usually that's when somebody I love has gone to the dark side, right? Like, oh my God, how on earth? I love you so much. How on earth did you see things that way, right? And that's just my own subjective comfort zone, right? They want to, but sometimes you can tell, right, when people are being open-minded. Sometimes people say, "Oh, you are ignorant because you're just watching this and you're just listening to that," but the people that are like, "Why do you feel that way?" When it's clear two people feel differently, right? The one that's seeking to understand how the other person feels is usually got the moral high ground, in my opinion. The one that's telling the person that how they feel is wrong has the moral low ground, in my opinion. That's my opinion.
Got you.
Fair enough. All right. Get
Okay.
a clue.
Thank you, Coach.
Yeah. Right. The one that's asking questions is the one's going to win, in my opinion. Why do you feel that way? How do you feel that way? What evidence are you relying on in order to make that claim? Do you know that the reasoning that you're using to criticize this person was eligible to use to criticize the same person over here, but you're not using that reasoning in this case, but you're using it in that case? Will you tell me more about that? Does this make sense? Right. I can come up with examples from some of the stuff that I'm seeing on the internet, but this isn't a political show. Patty, by the way, do you think I'd succeed in a political show? Trying to stay somewhat left of center, right? Let me say hello to Zoilo. Hats off to Zoilo. I can't believe it. Welcome. Get a Clue in 52 is live, 8:56 p.m. We've read tip number 5 tonight. This is tip number 5 of 52. We're going to keep this going all night long. Zoilo, if you come onto the Zoom side, you can interact with us live. tinyurl.com/get-a-clue. Otherwise, it's just great to see you chiming in. Mwah. I love you so much. Kiss the kids for me and your beautiful wife. And on the Zoom side, I got Charlie, Patty, Vipul, and Amy with me live. We're here. If you have any other comments or questions, I'm done reading tonight's tip. And now we're just pivoting into group communication. Any other comments or questions for tonight before we ask for last call and sign off? Patty, your microphone's open. Oh, now it's closed. Now it's open.
Well, I thought you asked a question
Go
about
ahead.
how you do on a political show.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
And the thing that I would like is that people would be more questioning of each other and their own beliefs, and I did this just the other night with a friend. And so now we're both going to, look for the evidence and reasoning about a particular issue that we had a disagreement about.
That's great.
That's how I would love to see you on a political show talk about how we can dialogue, because most people agree on most things. It's just other things is what's separating us.
Most political shows are designed to get you left or right? But where are the political shows that are designed to get us to come together? Where are the political shows that are designed to get us to understand how the other side is thinking and feeling so that we lengthen our fuse of tolerance, right? And which would just diffuse the anger and the violence, like what we saw at the Capitol. I don't care who you are, where you are. Nobody condones that, right? But what a mess, right? And how do we get that far? Because we're being divided, right? So anyway, if I was going to do a political show, the goal would get people from left and right closer to center, right? And stand in the other person's shoes. Don't tell the other person why they're wrong. Don't tell the other person how they should feel. Ask them how they feel and why they feel that way. And genuinely be interested in the answer. Oh my God, what a concept. So here we are, Get a Clue in 52. This is tip number 5. It's in the communication section. That's where we're starting off before we get into the next section. We got 5 more weeks of communication tips from the communication section. And I'm so happy for those of you that have come on the Facebook Live that are chiming in. I'm running out of batteries, so we're going to have to wrap this up soon. But Dr. Vanessa and Shalom and John and Zoilo. Zoilo, by the way, is Marianne's brother, oldest brother. It's like a real honor that like one of Marianne's family members would like validate anything I'm doing. It's like really cool. I digress. Thank you, Patty. I digress. Maggie and Maggie and Stephen and Martha and Shalom and Dr. Vanessa and John and Zoilo. Thank you so much for stopping by on the live side on Facebook and now on the Zoom side. Charlie, Vipul, Patty, and Amy. Anything else before we wrap up for tonight? Let's go ahead and make it happen. Ready? This is like my cheesy sound. Last call. Last call for comments or questions. I'm so pleased that all you guys joined us, and what a great hour to kick off the week or end the weekend. And Vipul, I'm looking forward to seeing you. We're on schedule twice for golf this week, Tuesday and Wednesday. Is that for sure? Wednesday for sure, but you told me to keep that Tuesday. Get back to me on that. No, Wednesday for sure.
I canceled Tuesday.
All right. Well, I got
behalf of us.
I got time to make that happen, but Wednesday for sure. Anyway, I love seeing you guys online. I love seeing you more in person, and hopefully this COVID thing goes away and we all get to hug each other the way we deserve to in the future. You guys know there's a lot of people out there that go for the jugular, but Coach Jeffrey, I like to go for the hugular, and boy, is COVID testing my patience. All right. Anything else? Anything else for week 5 of Get a Clue in 52? Anything else? Last call, everybody. No? All right. Who's ready to seal it with a kiss then? If you've got your copy at home, this is what we do. We go, mwah, and we seal it with a kiss. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Mwah. All right. I love you guys. Thanks, everybody, for chiming in. We'll see you next week, and go make it happen. Go communicate. Effective producers and consumers of communication. I love you guys. Good night, everybody.